This is Zero Logic Rants, where opinions don't follow logic, but they need mentioned anyway. Let's get into it. Today we're going to talk about solo leveling. Solo leveling is exactly what anime has been missing. And I don't mean it looks cool. I don't mean the fights look good. I mean it fixes something a lot of animes have been getting wrong. It respects the process. Because right now, a lot of shows want to skip straight to the highlight reel. They want the strongest character. They want the biggest moment. They want the hype transformation. But they do not want to show you the cost of getting there. And when you skip the cost, the payoff feels empty. Solo leveling doesn't skip the process. It makes you sit through it. Let's slow down and really look at where Sun Jinwoo starts. Because people say he starts weak. Like that's enough. It's not. He's not just weak. He's expendable. He's the hunter you bring along when you don't have a better option. He's the one people expect to get injured. When people see him around, they expect it to be an easiest dungeon because he's seen as the weakest hunter to ever exist. That is how the world sees him. No hidden respect, no secret recognition. And that's important because the show doesn't lie to you. It doesn't pretend he's special at the start. It forces you to watch someone exist at the bottom. Then we get to the double dungeon. And this is where I knew this series was different. Because this isn't just a cool moment. This is a test between the character and the audience. When you enter the dungeon, the atmosphere changes immediately. It's quiet, it's wrong, it's unnatural. You got unmoving statues that start moving. The rules are unclear until it's too late. And the hunters, they start breaking down one by one. You can feel the fear spreading. This isn't a fight you win with strength. It's a situation you survive, if you're smart enough. And Jinwoo, he doesn't panic the same way. He observes, he adapts, he holds it together just enough to keep going. And then comes the moment that defines him. When he stays behind, when he chooses to face something he knows he can't beat, that's not power, that's resolve. That's the kind of decision that makes everything later believable. After that, the system is introduced. And this is where solo leveling quietly becomes genius. Because now there are rules. Clear, measurable, consistent rules. Strength increases, speed improves, skills unlock. And now instead of guessing how strong he is, you see it. You can understand it and you can track it. And that does something important. It turns growth into something tangible. Every gain matters because you watch the struggle behind it. Now let's talk about the grind. Because this is where a lot of anime lose people. But solo leveling leans into it. You see Jinwoo training. Example is when he has his daily quest where he has to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, 10-kilometer run. Failure to do that daily quest results in a penalty quest where he gets sent for 4 hours to that random space. You also get to see Jinwoo fighting, learning, taking risk, and testing his own limits. Like when Jinwoo got his first key to the instant dungeon, where he fought the wolves and the dungeon boss, the blue venom fanged snake. Those early fights, they're not about dominance. They're about turning survival into confidence. When he wins fights he used to run from, that's progression. When he starts thinking ahead instead of reacting, that's growth. Those aren't throwaway moments. They're the foundation of everything he becomes. And here's something I respect a lot. The risk never goes away. Even as Jinwoo gets stronger, the world doesn't suddenly become easy. There are still enemies that can overwhelm him, and still dungeons that can push him to his limits and push him to the edge. And that matters, because if the danger disappears, the tension disappears. But here, you always feel like something could go wrong at any moment. And then slowly, everything starts to change. Not all at once, but you start noticing it. He's not struggling the same way anymore. He's moving differently. He's fighting differently, and he's thinking differently. Eventually, he's not just surviving, he's controlling the situation. And that shift, that's one of the most satisfying parts of the series. Then you get to the fight with Ygritte, and this is where everything comes together. This is about how far he has come. The pacing of that fight, the intensity of that fight, the pressure that surrounded that fight. It hits harder because you remember the version of him that couldn't even stand in a fight like that. And now he's competing, he's adapting, he's even coming out on top in some of the situations, especially when he won. And that's payoff. The real question is presence over power. And here's something I feel a lot of anime don't understand. Power alone doesn't make a character compelling. Presence does. And Jinwoo develops presence. When he walks into a scene, it feels different. When he fights, there's weight behind it. When he speaks, people listen. That doesn't come from power alone. That comes from the journey that he takes. Now let's break down why this series is so addictive in my opinion. It's the loop. The fight, gain, improve, repeat. But the difference is you feel every part of that loop. You're invested in the outcome. You want to see how far he can go. And that's what keeps you watching. A lot of animes want to be exciting, but they don't build the foundation. They rush the character, they skip the struggle, and they expect you to accept the results. But Solo Leveling doesn't expect you to accept anything. It shows you everything. So yeah, Solo Leveling isn't just hype. It's structured, intentional, built on progression that actually makes sense. And that's why it hits harder than most. Because if you respect the journey, the destination actually means something. But let's keep this going. This is where Solo Leveling really starts separating itself. Once Jinwoo gains access to the shadow system, everything evolves again. And this isn't just another power-up. This changes the way he fights. He's not just stronger, he's strategic on a completely different level. Now he's building an army, and not just any army. An army made from the enemies he's defeated. Think about that. Every fight doesn't just end in victory anymore. It adds to his power moving forward. That's progression layered on top of progression. When Ygritte becomes one of his shadows, that moment hits different. Because that wasn't just a strong enemy. That was a wall, a test. And now it's part of him. That's not just strength, that's evolution. Another thing this series does right is the momentum. It doesn't stall. It doesn't drag out progression just to fill time. When Jinwoo grows, it builds to the next moment, and the next moment, and the next moment, and so on and so on. You're always moving forward, and that's what keeps the energy alive. Now here's something important. The enemies don't stay weak. As Jinwoo gets stronger, the threats scale up. And that keeps everything balanced. Because no matter how powerful he becomes, there's always something out there that can challenge him. And that's what keeps the story from getting boring. You can actually track Jinwoo's confidence. At the start, he hesitates, he second guesses, then he reacts. But later he initiates. He controls fights. He walks in knowing he can win. But he still respects the risk. And that's balance. That's what makes him compelling. Let's talk about the fights again, because they evolve him. Early fights feel desperate. Later fights feel calculated. And eventually they feel inevitable. Not because they're predictable, but because you trust the character. You've seen what he's capable of. You've seen what it took for him to get there. One of the other best parts about Solo Leveling is the way the world reacts. When people start noticing that he's getting stronger, they question how he's getting stronger so fast. They start watching him differently. And eventually, they start respecting him. The shift isn't instant. It's earned over time. But here's something deeper. As Jinwoo gets stronger, he also gets more isolated. Because no one else is growing at his pace, no one else can understand what he's going through. And that creates distance between him and everyone else. That's something a lot of anime don't explore, but it is real. At a certain point, it's not about gaining more power. It's not about control. It's about control and mastering what you already have. And Jinwoo reaches that point. He's not just reacting anymore. He's thinking ahead. He's planning, managing risk. That's when a character stops being strong and starts being dangerous. Solo Leveling isn't built on just one big moment. It's built on consistent growth, and that's why it holds up. Because every stage of Jinwoo's journey matters. No empty power-ups. Everything connects. So when people say it's just a power fantasy, they're missing the point. Yeah, it's a power fantasy, but it's one that respects the process. It earns every level, it earns every fight, and it earns every moment. And that's why it stands out. And if you thought it peaked there, it doesn't. Because once Jinwoo starts building out his shadow army, the scale of the story changes. This isn't just one hunter getting stronger anymore. This is a one-man army. And what makes it hit isn't just the numbers. It's the memory behind each shadow. Every soldier in that army was a fight. That was a risk. That was something he had to overcome and push himself past his own limits. So when they show up in battle, you're not just seeing power. You're seeing history. And this is where Solo Leveling quietly levels up again, because it stops being just about strength and starts being more about control and strategy. Jinwoo isn't just running into fights anymore. He's thinking ahead, positioning his shadows, managing the battlefield, adapting in real time. And that's the difference between being strong and being unstoppable. But here's something important. The show never lets him feel untouchable. There are moments where things feel like they could fall apart at any second, that he could lose the fight, where the fights aren't as clean, where the outcome isn't guaranteed. And those moments matter because they remind you, no matter how far he has come, there's still a limit and there's still growth that he needs. Something else shifts too. Fear changes sides. At the beginning, Jinwoo is the one afraid. He's reacting, surviving, trying not to die. But later, enemies start reacting to him. They hesitate. They recognize something is off. They feel that pressure. And that's when you know the character has truly evolved. At some point, it stops being about levels and starts being about identity. Who is Jinwoo now? Because he's not the same person who walked into that first dungeon. He's sharper, he's colder, more focused, he's more calculated. But he's still grounded in that same drive to survive, to protect, to keep moving forward. And that's consistency. And that's what makes the evolution believable. A lot of stories peak and then they fall off. They hit one big moment and then everything after feels weaker. But Solo Leveling avoids that because they keep building. Every new level introduces new challenges. Every victory leads to something bigger. So the payoff doesn't just happen, it keeps happening. So let's bring it all together. Why does this hit harder than most? It's not just the fights. It's not just the system. It's not just the character. It's how all of it works together. You have a clear starting point, a visible progression system, real consequences, and a character that evolves step by step. You have a character that evolves step by step. And when all of that connects, you don't just watch the story. You experience the growth. So yeah, Solo Leveling isn't just hype. It's one of the cleanest examples of how to build a character from nothing and make every step matter. And that's why it stands out. Whether you agree or not, you thought about it. This has been Zero Logic Rants, and I'll catch you on the next one.